And back here in Washington, President Trump now saying that he's made a decision not to strike Iran at this time over its crackdown on massive anti-government protesters.
Nobody convinced me. I convinced myself. You had yesterday scheduled over 800 hangings. They didn't hang anyone. They canceled the hangings. That had a big impact.
The president claiming the regime canceled hundreds of hangings despite an Iranian cleric earlier today calling for the execution of protesters across Tehran. As the Iranian government continues to stifle demonstrators, the death toll has climbed to nearly 2,800, according to the human rights activist news agency. And ABC News chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell has more from Istanbul for us.
Yeah, hi, Alex. President Trump telling reporters this afternoon that it wasn't Arab or Israeli officials who convinced him not to strike Iran. He's saying that he made the decision himself not to attack the country, saying, quotes, "We'll see. As you know, Iran cancelled the hanging of over 800 people, and that had a big impact." Now, it's not clear where the president is getting the 800 number from. We certainly can't verify that particular number. But interestingly, human rights activists almost at the same time reporting that more than 2,700 people have died in protests across Iran. This is pretty much since the end of last year. And despite what the president says that he was told about no executions taking place, a hardline cleric leading Friday prayers today in Tehran demanding the death penalty for protesters and also personally threatening Donald Trump. The feverish atmosphere inside Iran by the regime cracking down on protesters. You've got 18 to 20,000 people arrested. You have now over 2,700 deaths, with the expectation that that number is going to go higher. It doesn't sound like the regime is backing down in any particular way. And in some senses, in another sign that the crisis may not have passed, the Pentagon expected to send more military assets to the Middle East. Sources telling ABC News US officials have been concerned that the military didn't have the right mix of assets. In other words, they need to have different military capabilities in place. If you launch a strike, then you should expect retaliation. So you need to be able to not just attack, but also to defend. According to one person familiar with the discussions this week, Trump was told that a military strike could be extraordinarily dangerous and potentially risk the lives of US service members in the region, especially if the government in Tehran felt in some ways that it had been cornered. We're now on day 8 of the internet being cut off in Iran, and that's why our information about any protests that may still be going on, and in particular about the backlash carried out by the regime, has been so sparse. We don't know what the real death toll is. We don't know what the regime is doing to those that it's got in custody. And we don't know what's happening with the people who risk their lives to go back out onto the streets. We spoke to one young Iranian, British Iranian today. He'd been inside the country at the start of the protests and at the start of the crackdown. He felt that this was their moment where they had to go back onto the streets. But he was imploring President Trump to stand with the protesters to protect them. He said he didn't want large-scale US intervention, but he wanted enough so they could get back out on the streets and bring about change by themselves.